The first time his trash cans were knocked over, Daniel Reeves assumed it was the wind. The second time, he blamed a passing delivery truck. But by the fifth morning, with garbage scattered across his driveway like confetti from a careless celebration, he knew something wasn't right. Daniel lived on the quiet edge of Willow Creek Estates, where manicured lawns and HOA rules promised peace and order. He kept to himself, worked long days restoring antique furniture, and valued the stillness that wrapped around his small home each evening. Yet every Thursday morning, the stillness was broken. His trash cans lay tipped across the pavement, lids cracked open, recycling drifting into the street. Neighbors walked their dogs past the mess, offering sympathetic glances but no answers. Then he noticed the tire marks, fresh, curved tracks cut sharply across the curb, stopping exactly where his cans stood the night before. The marks were deliberate, not accidental. He set the cans upright again, brushing dirt from his hands, telling himself it was nothing. But deep down, a quiet unease began to grow, because in Willow Creek Estates, nothing happened by accident, and Daniel was about to discover who or what was targeting his driveway. Daniel began waking earlier on Thursdays, positioning himself behind the living room curtains with a cup of cooling coffee in hand. Dawn painted the neighborhood in soft gold, and sprinklers whispered across green lawns. Everything looked peaceful, too peaceful. At exactly 6:12 a.m., the silence broke. A silver SUV rolled slowly down the street, engine humming with controlled impatience. It didn't drift or hesitate. It aimed. Daniel leaned closer to the glass. The vehicle accelerated slightly, veered toward the curb, and with a dull plastic thud, his trash cans toppled like bowling pins. Lids flew loose. A cascade of paper and packaging burst across the pavement. The SUV never stopped. It continued down the road with calm confidence, as if nothing unusual had happened. Daniel stepped outside moments later, heart pounding harder than he expected. He recognized the vehicle instantly. It belonged to Cynthia Hale, HOA board member. Rule enforcer. Neighborhood perfectionist, she was known for citing residents over mailbox paint shades and grass height measured to the quarter inch. But this? This felt personal. Daniel gathered the scattered trash in silence, aware that the peaceful life he cherished was shifting into something unfamiliar, because now he knew it wasn't the wind, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. That afternoon, Daniel drafted a polite note. He chose his words carefully, respectful and calm, explaining what he had observed and asking if Cynthia might be unaware of the repeated collisions. He slipped the note into an envelope and walked it to her immaculate brick home at the center of the neighborhood circle. Her lawn looked like green velvet. Her hedges stood in perfect symmetry. Even the walkway stones appeared polished. 3 days passed before he received a reply. It wasn't a letter, it was a citation notice from the HOA violation, improper waste container placement affecting community aesthetics. Daniel stared at the paper, disbelief tightening his chest. His cans had always been placed exactly where HOA guidelines required. Yet now, the official seal suggested he was the problem. That evening, he moved the cans 2 feet farther from the curb. The following Thursday morning, they were knocked over again. Neighbors began whispering. A few offered cautious sympathy, but no one wanted conflict with the HOA board. Daniel realized he was standing alone in a quiet battle he never asked to fight. Still, he wasn't angry, he was confused, and more than anything, he wanted the disturbance to stop. But peace, he was learning, often demanded a response. Over the next weeks, Daniel tried everything. He adjusted placement. He secured the lids with bungee cords. He added reflective tape for visibility. Each Thursday morning, he waited, hopeful. Each Thursday morning, the cans fell. The repeated crashes began to echo inside him. Sleep came lightly. Coffee tasted bitter. The small rituals that once defined his calm life now carried tension. One morning, Mrs. Alvarez from 2 houses down paused during her walk. "I've seen it," she said quietly. "She doesn't even slow down." Daniel nodded, unsure how to respond. Conflict wasn't in his nature. He believed problems should be solved with patience, not escalation. But patience, he realized, had turned him into a silent participant in his own frustration. That afternoon, he reviewed HOA regulations line by line. He discovered rules about container visibility, lid security, and placement distance, but there was nothing about residents deliberately striking them. For the first time, Daniel considered the possibility that compliance alone would not protect his peace. He sat on his porch as evening light faded, listening to cicadas hum beneath a violet sky. Something had to change, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Daniel spent the weekend in his workshop, surrounded by the scent of sawdust and linseed oil. Restoring antiques had taught him patience and precision, and how small structural changes could create lasting strength. He studied the lightweight plastic cans that toppled so easily. They weren't built to stand against force, so he built something that was. Using a reinforced steel base concealed beneath a weatherproof shell, Daniel constructed a weighted container platform anchored discreetly below ground level. It looked ordinary, HOA compliant in shape and color, but its foundation was immovable. He positioned it carefully along the curb, aligning it perfectly with HOA placement guidelines. From the street, nothing appeared different. Thursday morning arrived with pale sunlight and cool air. At 6:12 a.m., the silver SUV appeared. Daniel watched from behind the curtain, pulse steady, breath slow. The vehicle approached with the same casual confidence. It veered toward the curb, the impact came, but this time, there was no crash. The container did not tip. It did not slide. The SUV jolted slightly before continuing down the street. For the first time in weeks, the cans stood exactly where he had placed them, and in that quiet moment, Daniel felt something unexpected return: peace. Word spread faster than Daniel anticipated. Neighbors noticed the difference immediately. Thursday mornings were no longer littered with scattered debris. The street looked cleaner, calmer. Even the sanitation workers paused to admire the stability of the container setup. By the second week, Cynthia's SUV slowed as it approached Daniel's driveway. The vehicle remained centered in the lane, no sudden swerve. No impact, just a quiet pass-by beneath the rustling oak trees. 3 days later, Daniel received another envelope from the HOA. Inside was a brief notice: waste container placement now compliant. Thank you for maintaining community standards. No apology. No acknowledgement. But the collision stopped. Mrs. Alvarez smiled as she walked past. A teenager riding his bike gave a thumbs up. Small gestures replaced whispered sympathy. Daniel returned to his routines. Morning coffee tasted warm again. The evenings felt still and safe. He had not raised his voice. He had not started a fight, he had simply protected his peace, and sometimes, that was enough to restore balance. But Willow Creek Estates was about to reveal one final surprise. One crisp autumn morning, Daniel stepped outside to find a small potted plant sitting beside his reinforced container. A note rested against the ceramic base: for keeping the street clean. No name, just a simple gesture. Later that week, he noticed several neighbors repositioning their own bins more carefully, aligning them neatly along the curb. The street began to reflect a quiet sense of shared responsibility rather than silent tension. Even Cynthia's SUV rolled past slowly now, its driver focused straight ahead. There were no confrontations. No public meetings. No dramatic apologies, just change. Daniel realized the solution had never been about winning, it had been about setting a boundary with calm resolve. As golden leaves drifted across the pavement, he returned to his workshop, windows open to the cool breeze, the steady rhythm of restoration filling the air once more. The driveway remained undisturbed. The mornings remained quiet. Peace had returned, not through conflict, but through quiet strength. And in a neighborhood ruled by rules and appearances, one small act of resolve had restored something far more valuable: respect. And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.